Hello, my name is Casey Given. I'm a rising freshman at the University of California, Berkeley, but I am a libertarian though. But my question is, what evidence do you have? Well, like so many American students, I've been taught that the rising cost of oil is due to the industrialization of China and India. And what evidence do you have that the rise in oil is tied to radical Islam, especially when America has oil providers that are not especially very radical, like the United Arab Emirates or Qatar or Mexico or Canada? So what evidence do you have that is specifically tied to radical Islam?
Okay, are we buying more computers now than we were 5 years ago? Are we buying more computers now than we were 10 years ago? Is the price of computers higher or lower? Lower. Is China buying more computers than it was 10 years ago? Yes, okay, so if you have a free market and you're not dealing with a cartel, then what happens in response to increased demand, if there's not a physical constraint on supply, producers increase supply, right? And you have an equilibrium price, and it's usually lower than where you started before. Depends on the particular type of commodity. It's not true in every case, but generally, if you have economies of scale coming into play, then prices get lower. Now, if China and India had the same growth trajectory that they do now, and OPEC had increased production, we wouldn't be in this situation. And again, I return you to the numbers. Non-OPEC countries, which control less than a quarter of world oil reserves, doubled their production over the past 35 years. OPEC's production today is essentially the same, 32 as compared to 30 million barrels a day, where it was 35 years ago. The most new oil you could find, if there's more to be found, it's in OPEC countries. So that's one factor. So one, you have the constraint on supply imposed by OPEC. The second is you have the fact that the jihadist movement has marked oil as a target. There have been hundreds of attacks against oil infrastructure. Certainly a nexus has been in Iraq, but you've seen this all around the world. All around the world, because terrorist export tactics that work. And let's talk about specific statements. My institute actually tracks attacks against critical energy infrastructure, so we see this very clearly. But let's talk about specific statements. Remember the French oil tanker, the Limburg? Remember the attack on this oil tanker off the coast of Yemen? 2002, I think. Okay, this is the same suicide boat attack like the attack on the USS Cole. This is the Al-Qaeda statement after the attack. By hitting the oil tanker in Yemen, the Mujahideen have hit the feeding line and the provision to the artery of the life of the Crusader nation. It's clear to me. You see statements in Iraq, better to blow up a pipeline than kill 10 American soldiers, it will have more strategic impact. You see statements like, we brought the Soviet Union down to its knees and we can do the same to the great Satan. Okay? And oil is a critical element in this strategy. It's all over their writings, it's all over their speaking, it's all over their videos, and it is expressed in their specific strategy, not just to lay a bomb down under a pipeline, but to kill themselves in order to deny the world oil. There was an attempted attack a few years ago on Basra oil terminal. It's an offshore terminal in Iraq, southern Iraq. The destruction of that terminal was prevented by one Coast Guard officer giving up his life. But that was a suicide boat attack of people willing to kill themselves, not to kill other people, to kill themselves to deny the global oil market oil. They believe that oil is a gift from Allah to the Ummah, to the Muslim world.
Thank you.
Is there a chance that Saudi Arabia might get its act together and stop funding Al-Qaeda? Because they're sort of, playing both sides in the situation.
It's a very good question, and it's almost impossible to answer. Saudi Arabia is not like a normal government in a way. You have a royal family, tens of thousands of princes. Many princes get a stipend that's so large that it's enough to run their own foreign policy, their own domestic policy. So you can have our friends, the Saudis, saying one thing here in Washington and doing something quite different elsewhere around the world. And you have two situations here. Number one, you have Saudis that are, they're radical Muslims. And so they're funding Al-Qaeda and its affiliates. It's not just, you don't have to be a card-carrying member of Al-Qaeda to be a jihadi, right? But it's also these errors that we, as a country, have really made in thinking about this problem. They're funding radical Islam because they believe it. But you also have people that are funding it in the same way that you'd pay the mafia protection money. Hit other people, just don't hit me. Hit elsewhere, just don't hit in our backyard. And this is a deal that's been going on, since '79, essentially. The siege in Mecca. So it's very difficult to say if they'll stop. I think it would be very hard for them to stop.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alex Herberter. I'm from Auburn University, Montgomery. Now, you've made a lot of good points here, but one of the things you said in the beginning, and I'm not going to try and quote you word for word, but generally it was we need to get off of oil, and we need to do it in a way that doesn't hurt businesses and doesn't hurt the consumer and intervenes in the market as little as necessary.